Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Pod ISA, a space where global health voices come together to talk about patient centered care, dignity, and what truly matters in the healing process. I'm Isabella Castro, your host, as you know, and I couldn't be more honored to welcome today's guest, Dr. Jason A. Wolf. Welcome, Jason. Jason is a pioneer in the field of patient experience, president and founder of the Barrow Institute, and a global advocate for human centered care. Thank you so much for being here. The floor is yours. Please make yourself at home.
Oh, well, thank you, Isabella. Just an honor to be invited in the work that you do, in your commitment to our community and global movement is just so evident. So to be able to share some moments with you is always a gift that I receive with gratitude. So thanks for the invitation.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I saw that you have a glove behind you. Purposefully, you intentionally, you had Brazil in that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. I will have a deep and long connection with Brazil and just the amazing work that goes on there for the citizens of that country around experience and the work I know you've helped supporting others. So yes.
Yeah. I know you had, I've heard you've had a long story with Brazil, but there is a gossip around this that you prefer São Paulo rather than Rio, but
Hey, I don't know if it's gossip or it's just I haven't had I know you keep encouraging me, but the chance to actually come to Rio is never presented. It seems like I end up always dropping into São Paulo, spending my week and having to leave. So I need to drive north and we'll be fine. You know what I mean?
Sorry, it's nice to have a friend when we can make jokes whenever.
Yes.
So let's explore together not only the evolution of patient experience, but also how movements like What Matters to You, which the Barrow Institute just dropped in and started to work on this year, bravely supporting the movement and the folks this year and changing the way we care, the way the world put together care, listening patients, and helping the community and lead. So, starting with your story, the origin and vision, Jason, what led you to dedicate your life work to patient experience? Do you think there was a moment, like a turning point, that shifted your mindset? I mean,
It's interesting because my background is actually in international relations, in diplomacy. And so I've always seen myself as a citizen of the world, and a champion for humanity. And in parallel to that, really worked on a life of being a change agent within organizations, not only within healthcare, but when I realized I had the chance to bring my global perspective together with the capacity to really impact how we can make positive change in the world, I found myself in healthcare. And it was only then that I realized that the stories in my life influenced that choice that I wasn't even aware of. I grew up with a grandfather who was a pediatrician. And as a child, I got to sit in his waiting room. I guess we did that back then. And watch my grandfather come out each patient one at a time and get down on his knee, not to talk to the parents, but to talk to that little child to make sure that they were comfortable before they even came to their appointment. Years later, I was with my grandmother from the other side of the family, who unfortunately was one of the first cases of Alzheimer's in the United States, and watched how this woman who really helped raise me was treated as if she wasn't a human being at all. In the bed, being rotated just as if she was an object, not a person, until one day when one of the caregivers at that facility came and held my grandmother's hand and said, I'm here for you, Florence. I'm here. And it was that moment that I realized, wow, we're missing so much in healthcare. So, when I found myself in healthcare, reflected on those experiences I didn't even know impacted me and brought this global perspective, it was evident that we had some work to do. And it wasn't around surveys, it wasn't around satisfaction or checking boxes. There was an industry in healthcare that was committed to people that in many ways had lost its humanity. And I felt there was an opportunity to do a couple things, right? Create a space where addressing that work wasn't about competition, but about collaboration, about sharing ideas, about raising a tide globally that could help all organizations. And there was an opportunity for us to be vulnerable, to learn, to admit our mistakes, and to grow together that I didn't see existed. And so during my years within operating healthcare and being part of healthcare operations, I realized there was huge opportunities to do just that, to actually come together in ways that were meaningful. So it was, if I can say, Isabella, a perfect storm of my education with a global lens, my experiences, through my life that I didn't even realize had that kind of impact on me till I found myself walking the floors of healthcare organizations, of hospitals. And then the chance to see what was possible in healthcare and what we might be missing, that it all came together to help me realize that if we could have a conversation and really do something about the humanity of healthcare, that we could really impact the world in some pretty profound ways.
Wow, that was very profound. I wasn't expecting it. I am so sorry about this story of your grandma. I really didn't know that. I know you for a while. I didn't know about your grandmother. You always have something new to share. I'm sorry about your grandmother, but I'm even prouder of you, even more than I already was. Um, it's incredible how we can have our personal stories shaping how we, you know, challenge the status quo
Yeah.
of stuff,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes, 100%. And those are the seeds, right, that get planted in our hearts and souls that drive us. And I feel like we're lucky, right, Isabella, you and I, we've been able to live our life's purpose driven by experiences that we've had. And we've let those experiences become sources of inspiration, not sources of or a deterrent for what we believe is possible. And that to me is really important. And so to be able, I think you do this beautifully. You give the gift to others to be able to step into their power. And I hope we create a space that provides that for others as well, that can impact how we not only deliver healthcare, but how we exist as human beings together. And so that's, the bottom line for me.
This is your gift. You know that. You might, I think people might say that to you every day. You are being modest.
Right.
Um, from this point, I think we can move to the next question. I think you are the one in the globe that I see that raises this concern about being human. As far as I can see, as I can study, to be human. And what brings you, what makes you reflect on this and how to shift? Because in the beginning, you were speaking about you have made the concept of patient experience, and then I remember we worked very hard during the pandemic, and then we started to go beyond patient experience and to talk about human experience. Can you share with us, with the audience, how is it? What's
Yeah, I
human
mean,
experience?
I think there's a couple layers in this, right? I mean, I think when we first started the Barrel Institute, crazy enough, it's over 15 years now. And we were going to focus on this idea of patient experience. We realized there had to be some definition. So we pulled together as many people as we could find that actually worked on this then and sort of built the foundational definition of patient experience, which, the sum of all interactions shaped by an organization's culture that influence patient perceptions across the continuum of care. And what's key in that definition is its conciseness, but it's breadth. And at the heart of that conversation is one, right? It happens at the point of interaction. Interactions are primarily human being to human being. It is at all touch points across the care continuum. It's just not in small clinical boxes. That it's grounded in the culture of the organizations that we build to deliver on our care promise. So that's the lenses through which decisions are made and how people engage. And at the end of the day, it is the perceptions of patients and family members, their care partners, that really matter. They tell us whether we're doing it well or not. I think for a long time that has been hard for people to accept. And I think we finally gotten to a place that the voice of patients and families as a meaningful point of data, not just a survey result, is important. But when you look at even the essence of that definition from 15 years ago, what we were talking about was the humans in healthcare, right? When we speak about interactions, it's not just patient to doctor, but it's the interactions we have throughout a healthcare system. When we think about the cultures of organizations that we build cultures of organizations so we can create spaces where people can show up and live their purpose at work, not simply a place that's nice for a patient or family member to come and receive care. And so underlying that is the whole relational nature of healthcare. We, I think have always said, and I wrote about it, I think in 2012, 13, I don't even know, that healthcare at its essence is human beings caring for human beings. And this concept of thinking about the human experience we provide in healthcare actually helps us, I think, build a stronger, more robust, more considerate, and I think more directed healthcare endeavor overall, a global healthcare ecosystem that understands we have to care for the people who show up for work in healthcare in order to be able to provide for those that we care for every day. And we have to realize that healthcare institutions don't live in isolation. They live in our communities, right? When you walk out there, the hospital or that community health center, whether you live in a rural community or a favela, whether you live in the richest parts of town in a hospital that people can only pay to go to, we are all parts of our community in some way. And so you can't disassociate that either. And so this idea of healthcare being the kind of a hub of how humanity can come together at our most vulnerable moments really has to be the essence of what we do. And so it drove us really, I think, to have that conversation and reaffirm for over a decade, really, that we're speaking about the human experience. And that's not to diminish, right, that healthcare is about caring for patients and families. We still believe that patients and families are the heart of what we do. But if we don't care for the entirety of that human experience ecosystem, if we want to use that word, we can't ever deliver that promise effectively. And so that really has been the push to evolve that discussion. I actually feel it's helped us get beyond, well, this is just about a satisfaction survey or what somebody said about me around that clinical encounter. I think we've begun to look at this from a systemic way. And I think it's actually really impacted how people at all levels in healthcare think about how they do their work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is very beautifully said. And while you were speaking, I remember those crazy days, how we worked hard during the pandemic, and how in parallel we talked about human experience, and also how we shifted at the same time from inclusion to belonging, and how inclusion to belonging can also apply to workforce and also for patients and families. And I completely agree with you. This us, them, it doesn't work because we are one, like that song, U2 song, we are one. I'm become philosophy here. Philosophical.
I'm a philosopher too. It's okay. We can.
Yeah, sorry about my English.
Your English is amazing. My Portuguese is very bad.
Well, Jason, one thing that I have a lot of curiosity, and it's not in our script.
Yeah.
We can cut it off, no problem.
Right. Yeah.
How this creative, unstoppable brain can so perfectly match with Stacy Palmer, that brilliant, powerful, but super fit on the ground Stacy Palmer, and be a super work couple together now that you got globally, that you got stakeholders all around the globe. How many continents are you today?
Every continent but Antarctica, from what I can tell. But it doesn't mean that a doctor every once in a while doesn't pilot into Antarctica and actually stand there. That might be a member. So we have, we touch 6 continents, 85 countries where people are invested as members. And in fact, we can say, because of some of our work and including the Patient Experience Journal that's, been out since 2014 now, that things that our community produces, and I say that very purposely. I don't sit here and write everything, right? We're a community. People contribute their ideas. We share our lessons learned. We reveal our vulnerabilities. We grow together. So in 220 plus countries and territories, someone has accessed something that's come from this community. So in everywhere we can Google track in the world, we know at least somebody has accessed something to do something about experience. And that to me is just, it's moving, right? To think that it's not about us or what we've done. It's about the fact that there is a need and people are engaging and they're acting on this. And so back to your comment about the work relationship, I think that, Stacy and I have had, it has been the perfect yin and yang for 15 years, right? I think that if you think about a weather balloon, I'm coming up with a metaphor right now. You have to put a weather balloon really up high in the sky to be able to see everything, determine what's happening, make predictions, and think. But the weather balloon doesn't just fly up to the sky by itself. Someone's standing on the ground with that weather balloon tethered to it, looking at the data, figuring out what to do with it, making it happen, right? And so these two things don't happen without each other, right? And so I can say, without hesitation, our capacity to deliver on a lot of these crazy ideas or these hopes and beliefs that I see, the visions that I believe are possible, are made possible because I have the partnership with Stacy, because she can see how to get it done. And so, or I'd probably just be a weather balloon flying around in orbit right now with no grounding at all. So it does, I think it reaffirms that, right? This work isn't, one, it's not about me. It's not about an organization. It's about partnerships, collaboration, and possibility.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is how there is a quote here in Brazil that says, as someone like football, there is a quote here in Brazil that says, who is outside the game, it's able to see the game much more, have a better view much more than who is inside the game. So I see that it's a perfect match. And there is a cartoon that in Brazil we say pink and cerebro, that in translating to English would be pink and brain. I don't know if it's that's the name. I can send you Rover like that. But there is someone who thinks, and they actually, we gonna conquer the world together. And you guys are doing. So with that, speaking about the world, there is a subject that I like a lot. There is the What Matters to You movement that I've been involved since 2016. And you guys this year beautifully shared on the website and your tools, Zoom for the meetings and all other stuff. So could you share with us a little bit about your views about the What Matters to You movement, your experience so far? How do you feel being together with the What Matters to You people, the group, how this experience it's been for you, and if you have any message of courage for people who are coming, just not getting to know the movement now?
One, I think it's one of the most important questions in the world. And it's not just one for healthcare, right? Which I think is exciting. It's a great story because it's a story of parallel, passionate endeavors that have found a way to intertwine for even greater purpose, right? started the Institute in 2010. Susan Edgman-Leviton's article around shifting our language to what matters to you that Maureen Bolsonaro picked up and rewrote her speech for the IHI conference. And I wasn't there. I know a lot of people were in the room, but I heard about it immediately where she challenged people to change the question, to listen to what that article said. We're really fortunate in many ways, right? Susan Edgman-Leviton, the co-author of that article, is actually one of the members of one of our boards at the Institute and has been for a long time. So it's interesting how all we seem to be able to create a space for all this connection to occur. But to watch that movement, the things that really kind of almost were fostered a little bit in Scotland first, and other, right? The ability to ask the question and then to create really an organic conversation on simply shifting a dialogue on what's the matter to what matters to you is so profound. And that has been a fundamental value of, I think, so much of what we have spoken to from the Institute from the beginning. And I always have believed if we don't understand the expectations people have, we're going to always miss the boat, right? I tell a story actually about a visit that and I know you want to talk about stories later, but I might tell you now. I mean, I was at a hospital in Sao Paulo, and there was a patient who was on the last days of life, and instead of asking her how they can relieve her pain and simply put her under some medical protocol, they asked her what was important to her at the moment, right? In essence, what matters to her. And what was important to her wasn't the pain, it was to be able to be there for her daughter's 5th birthday. And so the team did miraculous things with the miracles, I think, and incredible, brains that go into medicine. And they were able to sustain this mother's life so she could have her 5th birthday with her daughter. Now, what they did was obviously create that moment for this woman that she'll take with her for those last moments of her life or wherever she happens to be next. But they create a moment for the daughter that rather than having her memories be about her mom, dying, was the fact that she got to have that special moment with her mom before she did. And so I think realizing that asking the question is not just about an individual interaction, but around the ripple effect that we can create is so powerful. So it was a natural alignment as we became closer, and I've known Maureen for many years, and I've learned so much from her and respect her dearly, to find a way to support the What Matters to You movement in the infrastructure that we've been able to build at the Institute. And so this bringing together of and honoring the idea of what the What Matters to You movement is, and also giving it, in essence, a nest, a home to be able to flourish within the Beryl Institute infrastructure as a global community was really important to me. And we've seen it just since the start of this year, just now 6 months in, flourish. The ability to bring in new voices, to create infrastructure for content. And we're still learning, but I do believe this idea of aligning our global conversations and really reaffirming our core messages. And I would say wholeheartedly, back to our conversation on human experience, that when you ask people what matters to them, you are asking what human experience they want. And so this natural alignment is not simply, transactional, right? It is exponential, and it's a catalyst for growth for, I think, all of what we believe is important in expanding a truly integrated global conversation. Back to our very first bit of our conversation around how do we transform and elevate the human experience, and use that not only as a means to shift the conversation in healthcare, but around how we can show up in humanity in general.
Yeah, I love it. I think stories are data with a soul.
Yes.
And there's no strongest and powerful way to reach people's hearts than tell them a story.
Yep.
And you just told us a story from Sao Paulo. You never forgot.
Never. And we won't.
Yeah. I was wondering, and that was I just had this idea that was not in the script too. I just got this idea. I saw in the news yesterday, because of these polarized times, how it's so challenging for us, now speaking about leadership and motivation and how to get the most of people in these so challenging political times, um, most of the bringing a bit of equity spice for this discussion, most of the diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, not just in companies, but also in universities, are being closed. Do you think, which message can we give to these people so that they do not lose hope for us to keep our message up of human experience, to stay powerful?
Yeah, so we have to, first of all, and we will, I can say, and I've written this, I think in a LinkedIn post, that me personally, our organization in particular as well, will not waver from this being a core idea, right? We talked about, right, our work that carried us through the pandemic to create this declaration for human experience, right? The first commitment in this is to eradicate systemic racism, dismantle disparities and elevate equity, right? You can't erase that as a foundational principle. You can't have an experience conversation if it's only for some people. And so we're stuck right now. And remember, I'm a diplomat by training first, right?
Yeah.
We're stuck in a place. So it's an interesting time for me because I'm a diplomat by training and my doctorate work is really in discourse, the use of language. And so we're stuck in a language problem, right? That people are stuck on words, not intent. And they've latched on to words as a means, as a reflection of bad versus the intent that I don't think most human beings disagree that people should have some sort of, equitable opportunities, that people should be judged for their capacity, not the way you see them, that people should feel like they can participate, not be excluded because of who they are, or what they choose to be. And yes, 100% color of their skin. I mean, all of those things, right? And so this is not something that can ever be removed from an experience conversation. So I think, right, we're in a reactionary moment in our global history of watching the words that we use. I'm hoping there's a level of bravery that is found in collective action around not stepping back from the core ideas that are fundamental to this. I get and I empathize for the weights that some organizations are carrying right now in the form of threats or loss of funding or whatever else might be, that they need to survive because they use certain words.
Yeah.
And the battles out there and whatever ideology that actually treating human beings in a decent way is some kind of discriminatory action. I don't understand that philosophy at all. So we need to champion that and also be a little forgiving if people have to tweak their language right now to navigate these difficult moments. What I don't think should be unforgiving about is a willingness to abandon this as an essential idea of what it means to be human. And so that pillar that I speak to in the Declaration for Human Experience isn't being reworded, isn't being erased. It's a foundational idea. We commit to caring for our communities, equity, access, dismantling disparities. We commit to our workforce and the needs and vulnerabilities that we find in our workforce that actually is connected to some of the things in that very first pillar, that we understand, as we were just talking about, what matters to our patients, families, and care partners. And when we can do all of that, we actually make a world that creates greater opportunity, greater connection, a positive growth than one that we've created some kind of false sense of tension or a dynamic of, distinction that serves some, but doesn't really help anybody.
That was lovely what you said. That should be an statement for other companies. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, I appreciate the question. It's an important one.
Um, Jason, I'm just mindful about our time. I know you are a super boss, super busy. Unfortunately, we're coming to a close. Let's make it a fun exercise for our
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
Imagine us 5 years in the future,
Mhm.
2030, having this conversation in a podcast, in a convention, whatever. Um, what's what will be the Barrow Institute in 2030? What do you think healthcare would be? Politics,
Mhm.
human experience, etc. How do you envision the world healthcare and the Barrow Institute uh, in all this ingranation
Yeah.
in 5 years?
I appreciate the question.
Having this conversation in 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. I mean, I think, I'll come back to a foundational value for me, who I am as a leader, what I believe from the start. This is not about me or about the Barrel Institute, but it's about the opportunities we have to impact the way the world comes together. So, what I would hope for and what I believe is possible um, is based around a common question I ask no matter where I stand in the world. Back to where we started the conversation. How many continents are we? I can stand in any continent in the world and ask a simple question. How many people in this room are human beings? And it's the one question I can ask where I hopefully see everyone raise their hand, right? And so to me, that is a common denominator we often overlook in the face of our distinctions. And so I would love us, and I believe we can help honor the richness and tapestry of the diversity of our humanity and affirm the common denominator that in our humanity and that diverse humanity, the root of that is human. And the way we do that is by creating the opportunity for people to come together where they are, and for those local gatherings to connect in a global network that creates an avenue for access, information, and improvement that's never been seen before. So, what I would love to see in 5 years are actively dynamic regional networks that are having a conversation about what we do at home, whether they're in Nairobi, Kenya, or across the sub-Saharan African continent, whether they're in the Gulf, GCC states, or across, Asia Pacific, whether it's a European collaborative or a Latin American group, where people come together and have conversations locally about what matters where they are in their environments. But those are not the boundaries in which they operate, right? That those regional connections can come back together if the Institute is the conduit or something else we evolve into, to ensure that the places we never thought to look for lessons are the places we begin to find them. I always speak about a colleague of mine, Benta Mongie. They're doing amazing work right now in Nairobi, Kenya. No one would think to look there for their excellence and experience right now. But I tell you, there's things there the world could learn from. And imagine if we had the capacity to elevate all those places in the world we didn't know were doing the most amazing things so that we could be better everywhere else. So in 5 years, that's my hope. That, I jokingly say, imagine if you could just go to Google Earth, spin the map, and see all the green hotspots around where amazing things were happening, and tick, 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 tick down till you see, oh, Nairobi Hospital, or, so and so, and learn what they're doing, reach out to them, communicate, get together with your colleagues regionally, share ideas and make improvements. And as a result of that, change the nature of the global discussion. You had this question, so if I'm getting ahead, I apologize. Sort of my mission, right? My personal vision has always been to profoundly impact the world by unleashing the potential in people's hearts. And as a result of that, I think we have great things we can do. I'm a believer in that every day. It's what gets me up. And especially now, it's something that we have to focus on. That's the possibilities that I see. That's what I am going to remain relentlessly committed to until I can't be committed to anything anymore. And I do it for my kids, do it for my family. I do it for my friends and people I will never even have the chance to know. But I think when we come together around something like this, anything is possible. And in the forces and in the face of forces right now that try to tell us otherwise, we will win.
We will win. I wasn't expecting an emotional conversation like this, but it's always a surprise to talk to you.
Me neither. So,
Whew. Wow, everybody. Jason, thank you so much for this powerful, emotional, and so lovely conversation and generous so far. Your leadership inspires a new generation of health professionals, inspires me as well. As you know, I always tell you that, how I love you, not just to care better, but to care deeper. Here at PodEasy, we believe that experience is not a department, it's the soul of care. And today we've been reminded that listening to what matters is more than a question, it's a revolution. And
indeed.
it's a super revolution. It's a resistance. We are not giving up. We are not giving up. Thank you so much, Jason. And I see you all in the next episode of PodEasy. Thank you for your attention.